Hello, we will be working through a lesson on Stone Age Man's Terrors Still Stalk Modern Nightmares, a newspaper article by Robin McKee. To access this piece, you will need to log into your student online textbook and access the Independent Learning for Unit 1. From there, you can click on this text. If you need time to do this, please pause the lesson now. When we read, we conduct a first read to make sure we understand what we are reading before doing deeper analysis. The chart on this slide shows you possible steps of a first read. Notice, annotate, connect, and respond. To annotate the online text, simply highlight with your mouse cursor. You can highlight, circle, underline, and type. Some of the first read activities include noticing new information or ideas you learn about fear, annotating vocabulary and key passages to revisit, and connecting ideas within the selection to other knowledge and texts you have read. Read the text and make your own annotations now. When finished annotating, add some notes about your annotations into the box. My first example of an annotation is actually in the first line. I wanted to circle this line because it felt like it was a possible claim or thesis. Quote, "They were created to trigger our most primitive fears by depicting half-human, half-animal monsters that hunted the living." End quote. It's a good idea when reading nonfiction to be on the lookout for the main idea or argument that the author is trying to get across. That way, you can then start to pay attention to how the author builds that argument. My next annotation was an important detail that I might want to return to, that Stone Age peoples created these works of art 10,000 years ago, and that these scary pictures represent some of the world's oldest art. In paragraph 5, I thought it was important to note all the different places mentioned in the article: Australia, South Africa, France, and Spain. Next, therianthropes was a new word for me, so I wanted to highlight it and its definition: human-animal hybrids. Finally, the text made connections to other things I knew, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Egyptian gods, minotaurs, satyrs, and Dracula, so I wanted to note where the text connected with other things I already knew about. The last step of a first read is to develop a summary of the piece. This is standard 10 RI KID 2. Determine a central idea of a text. Provide an objective summary. When providing an objective summary of a nonfiction text, it is important to figure out the main idea of the text without providing your own opinion at all. You also want to avoid getting into the details of a piece. Take a few moments to respond by writing a brief summary of the selection. In your summary, be sure to include the author's name and title of the piece. Here's my summary of this piece. In Stone Age Man's Terrors Still Stalk Modern Nightmares, Robin McKee reveals that frightening human-animal hybrids have been found on cave art from the Stone Age. This art was found in a vast array of places around the world. McKee connects these ancient depictions to modern horror. As you can see, my summary is relatively short. It includes the title of the piece and the author's name. I use my own words, but make sure to highlight what I thought were the main ideas of the text: that scary human-animal hybrids date back to the Stone Age, that this art was found around the world, and that the author connects these ancient depictions to modern horror. Notice that I left out a lot of the details that I noted in my annotations. For instance, I didn't list all of the places that the art came from or exactly how long ago it was. Summaries are about big ideas, not the small details, but these may be useful to us later. Now we are going to walk through a close read of the text, using the highlights and annotations you made earlier. We also want to keep in mind the unit question: what is the allure of fear? For this next part, we will be focusing on 10 RI KID 1. Analyze what a text says explicitly and draw inferences. Cite the strongest, most compelling textual evidence to support conclusions. To do this, you will first ask yourself a question about the text and then use evidence from the text to draw a conclusion. A question that I had after reading this article was, what do cave drawings have to tell us about the modern allure of fear? To answer this question, I looked at the paragraphs 16 through 18. The author walks us through a chronological progression in this section. He starts with the ancient Egyptian gods of Bast and Anubis. Then he moves to more classic legends, such as the werewolf and Dracula. He finally ends with modern Hollywood creations, such as Alien and Predator. The article tells us that there's a long history of people tapping into their fears through creative expression, particularly in creatures that combine man and animal. It tells us that our current way of dealing with fear have ancient roots. We are now going to focus on the author's choices. This aligns with Standard 10 RI KID 3. Analyze how an author presents and develops key ideas and events to impact meaning. Return to your annotations and think about the author's choices of patterns, structure, techniques, or ideas. Choose one of these and record your thoughts on both what the author does and how that choice helps McKee develop his key ideas and impact meaning. I decided to focus my analysis of the author's choices in paragraph 10. In this paragraph, the author starts out with the main idea of the whole passage, the one similarity that popped up in early modern art. I felt like the use of the colon and the words only one really emphasized how important this similarity was. Across the whole world, there was only one similarity in the ancient art: human-animal hybrids. From there, the pink highlights emphasize examples to help the reader understand what this ancient art looked like. Statues of cat-head humans or paintings of feathered humans with bird-like heads and drawings of men with heads of fruit bats are detailed images that help us understand how Stone Age people envisioned terrifying human-animal hybrids. The blue highlights show the proliferation of this idea across space and time. The human-animal hybrids were found in Europe and Australia. They are also similar to Hollywood horror films. This all supports the author's claim that humans across time and space express our fear through creative imaginings of human-animal hybrids. Now try to answer the following textual question. Why did the author mention horror films such as Alien and Predator while writing about paintings that were created 10,000 years ago? His audience was mostly horror film fans and would appreciate this reference. He wanted to show a connection between fear that motivated ancient artists and creators of art today. He thinks that the mix of reptiles and insects with humans is actually more frightening than the cats or bats of ancient art. He thinks that Hollywood horror films are not as creative since they rely on ancient ideas for their monsters. So the correct answer to this question is B. First, let's look at the wrong answers. A states that his audience was made up of horror film fans who would appreciate the reference. While it is likely that he included these movies because he expected people would know of them, we know that this article appeared in a newspaper, and there's no textual proof that his audience appreciates horror films. And C, while I may find the reptile or insect hybrids more frightening myself, McKee never says they are. He just says that these are the current trends as a fact, not as an opinion. And D, again, McKee gives no opinion about Hollywood films. He just states what they have been doing. In B, however, as we stated earlier, McKee maps out a chronology of human-animal hybrids from 10,000 years ago to today to show that there is a connection. This is also emphasized when he says that these films tap into an ancient urge. Thank you for working on this lesson. Stone Age man's terrors still stalk modern nightmares.